Yes, terrific. And also to let you know, we have a number of folks who are joining us by Zoom this morning. You'll have, I don't know, 20 or so extra people listening to you online, and they'll be chiming in as they so choose with questions and comments. I'm going to turn the program over to our Executive Director, Cheryl Wilson, for a few words of welcome. And here she is.
Thank you. Thanks, Elizabeth. And unfortunately, I won't be able to stay with you. I'm going to go join the state planners, but just want to take a moment to thank you for being here. Thank Elizabeth and our panelists for talking about grants. More than anything, though, I wanted to introduce you to someone who truly is the inspiration behind a lot of what we do and why we do it. And that's the VA250 National Honorary Chair, Carly Fiorina. Someone said last night, Senator Locke did, if you were with us, that honorary usually means a title. Not at all. Carly Fiorina cares so deeply about the 250th and how it's happening across Virginia and nationwide. And she too has another place to be in about just a few moments, but wanted to take this opportunity to come in and talk with the local committees. So ladies and gentlemen, Carly Fiorina.
So good morning. I don't usually correct Cheryl because I love working with Cheryl. She's a fantastic executive director and a pleasure to be with. But actually, I don't think of myself at all as the inspiration for this. Instead, I think of you as the inspiration for this. And I'm not just saying that to pander. One of the things I said in my remarks last night is historically true, and it is a tribute to all of you that every great movement in this country, including the revolutionary movement or the civil rights movement or the voting rights movement, pick your movement, it was a grassroots, bottoms-up, community by community movement. And that's what you all are here to do, to share, to continue. And why is that the case? Why is it that great change, lasting change, substantial impact, movements that matter, why do they start at the bottom? Yes, at some point, a movement needs a spark of inspiration, many sparks of inspiration. But movements start where you all are in a community on the ground, because most of us don't connect with abstract ideas as powerfully as we connect with the people we know, the places we know, the leaders we know. That's how we connect. And that's what you're all about. And so if we want Americans, every American in our communities, to connect and reclaim our past so that we can move forward in our future, that connection is going to happen through you and others like you in their community. It's not going to happen because some famous person at the top. It's going to happen because of all of you. I hope that the programming that you've participated in over the last couple days has been inspiring to you, that you've gotten a few ideas. I certainly have. I've learned a lot listening to everyone over the last couple days. And I also realize, and I apologize, I stand between you and your great panel, but literally and figuratively. But I also realize how much I don't know. And isn't that actually exciting and interesting? Most people love to learn new things if those new things are presented to them in a way that's not beat you over the head, but is like, wow, isn't this interesting? So in the panel that we had about reaching underserved communities. When Christy said, well, how many of you people know these names? And everybody sort of sat there, okay, I'm not a historian. I raised my hand. I don't know these names. And now I want to know these names. So there is this wonderful opportunity for connection on the ground with people they know. There's this wonderful opportunity for discovery. Wow, that's interesting. I never knew that. And the other thing that I think is often overlooked as an impact, I spoke last night about a substantial lasting impact. I think we overlook the power, not just of connection, the power not just of discovery of new things that sparks us in new ways, but I think we overlook the power of empathy. We don't have enough empathy in our world. And I think people build empathy for one another when they connect, and then they discover something about someone else, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I can have empathy for somebody who's different than I am. So while this is about a big nation, and this is about big ideas, revolutionary ideas, and this is about big battles and big wars and big things and big consequence, and yes, it is. What I don't want you to forget is this is also, maybe most especially, about the small, but in the end, I think the most important things. The connection on the ground with people we know, that you know. Or maybe you haven't yet met in your communities, but they're part of your communities. Connection, that it's about discovering something about each other that we didn't know, discovering something about our community we didn't know, discovering something about our history we didn't know, and then in the end, it's also about empathy. Because we're never going to agree on everything, but we can agree that we're very blessed to be in the Commonwealth of Virginia, that we're very blessed to be Americans, that we're very blessed to have this legacy to carry forward. So thank you so much for the work you do. Thank you so much for continuing to move forward. I am now, by the way, on my way to address the America 250 Commission, all their elected officials, and one of my purposes is to say to them, to remind them that movements start from the ground up, and that this is where the action is. So thank you very much for having me join you for a few minutes.
Thank you so much, Cheryl and Carly, for coming in, giving us these words of inspiration as we begin the next little bit of work here together. Once again, let's give a little applause for our leadership there. Thank them for joining us. And it occurs to me, too, that I probably was remiss in not introducing myself. Most of you I think I've spoken to before, but I'm Elizabeth Mancano, and I'm the Deputy Director for the VA250 Commission. If I haven't spoken with you in person, I've probably communicated with you by email or some other way, but I did want to say hello, and that's who I am this morning and every day. So I'd like to get started because we have a fantastic panel for you this morning to talk about something that I think is probably very interesting and important to all of you, and that is grant funding. Then after we have some presentations from our grant makers, we're going to have some opportunity to talk a little bit about what VA250 is doing, some resources that are available to you all. I'd like to also go around and see who all is here so that you all know who your counterparts are in the room. Although I hope that by now, over the last few days, you've had a chance to check in with each other already. And then we're going to have an opportunity for a little Q&A and some networking. And that's sort of how this is going to run this morning. So without further ado, I'd like to turn the discussion over to our friends at Virginia Tourism, who are actually with us virtually, and I think we're going to see them in about 1 second on the screen. Right, Nicholas? Yay. I can see Stacy. And there's Caleb. There we go. And we're looking for Noah, and there we go. So here are folks from VTC. And Stacy, I'm going to turn this over to you to take us through Virginia tourism grants available to localities.
Perfect. Wonderful. Okay. Good morning, everybody. So I love what Ms. Fiorini talked about with empathy and storytelling. And so our VTC VA250 programs are really centered around helping you tell your story and helping you market that you are telling your story to visitors. What we want to build out is a really robust tourism economic ecosystem against the backdrop of VA250, of the whole commemoration, the whole 5 years. We started our grant program last year. A lot of folks needed some additional runway. So I'm just going to go quickly over, if we can go to the next slide, sort of what our focus is when we think about these stories. Of course, we're the tourism authority for the state. We want to see overnight visitation. We want to see folks traveling around to your programs, to your museums, to your localities. We also want to see folks learn new things about Virginia. As you've been at the conference, I know we're kind of talking about stories, right? Virginia's story is America's stories. And some of our stories are painful. Some of our stories are celebratory. And we want to help you market that you're going to be telling these stories. So some of the things I'd like you to think about as you build out what your programming is going to look like during the commemoration years is think through all of our nation's history, even pre-revolution, all the way to yesterday. Think about some untold stories. So maybe you want to work with your Main Street community and tell this innovation and entrepreneurship story in your community. Maybe you want to talk about how the mercantile was kind of the first stop for these first settlers coming in to go west. Think about how like Hanover has started a great program, America's First Frontier. You got off the boat in Norfolk and got a horse and wagon and kind of went up what is now 64 and stopped and resupplied in Hanover. That's an interesting story now. And then you went on down to the frontier, and the Frontier Museum has gotten some funding for us to update some signage and talk about that westward expansion story. We've been working with the Museum of Contemporary Art on an initiative on a Made in Virginia artisan and art exhibit. So there's all different ways where you can embrace the programming piece and then apply to Virginia tourism for some funding in order to help market your programs. So we'll get into kind of the meat and potatoes of the programs itself. What we want you to do is do some marketing. We want you to let folks know that there's some great things happening in your community, at your museum, at your universities, that your committees are putting on. So think through a tourism lens. How are you going to drive people to come into your community, to embrace your community's stories? You're going to use social media, maybe print advertising, some digital advertising. Maybe you want to get those international travelers in. As you know, 2026 is a World Cup year. It will be North America, South America. So think about how those folks are going to come in to the international airports in Northern Virginia, and how can we get them down 95 and across 64 exploring Virginia as part of their vacation. Think about ways you can connect with Brand USA. That's the marketing agency for the United States. We don't see their ads here, we're already here, but they're marketing travel to the United States in 57 different countries in all different languages. So the way our programs work is they are open to certified VA250 committees. I see a lot of partners here on my Zoom screen. We also opened up eligibility to museums and historic sites for this next round. So if you have a museum or a historic site, you're bringing in something special for the 250, like MoCA's Made in Virginia initiative. Think about how you can activate this funding to bring more visitors to your museum or historic site. We will be looking at expanding eligibility further this fall once we kind of get through this round and have some conversations about sort of what's next. Since we have a lot of committees on the call here, one thing I want you to think about is to really activate your breweries, your wineries, and your distilleries. 2026 is a perfect time to come up with that commemorative blend and think about ways where you can get them to tell a story about an unknown historic figure in your community. Can you get them to do a blend release party as a fundraiser for your museum? Really think through how you can create these partnerships and these unique ideas. So the way our program works, it'll be open twice a year through 2026. We hope to get additional funding through 2031. We'll see how that goes. We can go on to the next slide here. There we go. So think about your marketing as you go through all this, and then we'll go on to the next slide. I apologize, it's a little bit different. I'm getting some messages where some folks can't see the screen. So what we can do is we can email the slide deck over once we get through. So let's go to the slide deck with the American flag. It'd be slide number 4. Okay, perfect. So like I said, we're going to open this twice a year through 2026. Hopefully the commemoration funding will continue through 2031, and we will continue to offer 2 rounds a year going forward. And we can go on to the next slide, slide 5. So that program is open right now. It is 1-to-1 match up to $10,000. Unless you're in an economic development district, that's a federal designation. If your committee, your county, locality, your museum, your historic site is in a federally designated economic development district, we're going to allow you to have in-kind match. The other wealthier communities, about half of them in Virginia, are going to have to come up with cash match. But this is matching funds for marketing expenses and some limited interpretive signage, like your Road to Revolution signage, or maybe some additional signage you want to update in your historic site or in your town square, in your courthouse square. We really want to make sure you're telling those unique and unknown stories. We really want to make sure you're taking a look at all of those touch points across, 250 years, 400 years, 600 years of history on this continent, and really think through what's going to be interesting and what complements other things they can do in your community. A lot of our applications, or all of our applications, are sort of through this itinerary lens. You want folks to come to a program at your historic site or museum. Maybe they're going to stop off to a brewery, get something to eat, and spend the night at a local B&B. So we really want to activate that economic piece of this commemoration, and we're offering you some dollars to do that. So that program is open right now until April 5th. And then we will open another round in the fall. We also have additional funding programs, our marketing leverage program, our special event and festivals program, and our tourism office DMO program. Those just closed, but will open again throughout the year. So write this down, vatc.org/grants. That's how you can find out all the different grants that we have going right now. And we'll just go over to the last slide, slide 6. That is contact information for Noah, Caleb, and myself. We are happy to answer any questions, come out and do a site visit, kind of talk through your stories and talk about maybe what are the best stories to tell. I was a park ranger for 10 years with the State Park Service, so very familiar with interpretation, tour guiding, and sign design. So happy to help you and give you some advice on all of that as well. We appreciate your time, and we'll turn it back over to Elizabeth for the next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stacy and Noah and Caleb. We really appreciate that. And for those of you listening to us on Zoom who may have been having a difficulty seeing the slides, this program, this presentation this morning, along with all of the others that have been happening throughout the last few days, are being recorded and will be available on the VA250 website after the fact. So we'll make that available to everybody that way if you haven't been able to see it now, or if you just would like to refer to it again later. Next up, also joining us virtually is Adam Corville from Virginia Humanities. And Adam, we're delighted to have you with us this morning as well to tell us a little bit about what's available through Virginia Humanities. You've heard about how you can market your programs using the resources available through VTC. Virginia Humanities is making available to us funding to help you come up with the content that you may wish to market. So Adam, you go ahead and take it away.
Great. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. And I'm glad to be Zooming in here with everyone today. I have some slides as well about Virginia Humanities and our grant programs, in particular our VA250 programs. So Virginia Humanities, we are the State Humanities Council. Our mission is to connect people and ideas to explore the human experience. In particular, our grants support projects that explore the stories of Virginia, its history, people, communities, cultural traditions, as well as issues and questions that impact the lives of Virginians in the present day. And one of the main ways we do this is by grant making. Next slide, please. We do have a variety of different grant programs, including minor or rapid grants, which are up to $5,000 offered 4 times a year. We have our regular grants, which are offered twice a year, which actually are up to $20,000, not the $10,000 listed here. We have rolling sponsorships for different activities and events that happen throughout the year. And what we're talking about here today are highlighting the VA250 grants, which are going to be offered annually for the next couple of years for awards up to $10,000. Next slide, please. So a little bit about our VA250 grants. We are focusing on projects that are going to relate to the American Revolution and its lasting legacy. We are asking that all applicants work with their local committees, and there's going to be a required letter of support from the local committee for each applicant. As I stated, the awards for these are up to $10,000 and do require a one-to-one match. Now, these matches can be cash or in kind from non-federal sources. And as Virginia Humanities is a unit of the University of Virginia, all of these awards are going to be managed as subawards through UVA, which is just an important distinction, as the financial aspect will be managed through the university, which we will facilitate. Next slide, please. Now, a little overview of the eligibility. Grants are being awarded to any nonprofit which is established as tax exempt under 501c3, or institutions of higher education, and tribal nations recognized by the state of Virginia or the federal government. Next slide, please. I wanted to give a little overview of some of the different organizations that we've already been working with who have received awards, including the Northern Neck Tourism Commission, Virginia Quilt Museum, among others. Our grants have been reaching across the Commonwealth, just like applicants and grantees that we work with throughout all of our grant programs. One of our goals is to spread these grant funds across the Commonwealth as much as we can. Next slide, please. And important things to note for applicants and grantees is that we are encouraging that the local committees recommend or partner with or support one applicant per cycle. Again, that's part of our goal to spread the funds out across the Commonwealth as much as we can. Since this funding is a separate source of grant funding from our typical or traditional funding programs, any applicant or grantee that already has a rapid grant or regular grant or sponsorship award from Virginia Humanities is eligible to apply for the VA250 grants. And this is outside of our normal eligibility requirements. Typically, grantees can only have one Virginia Humanities grant at a time, but this is different. So encourage folks to utilize that while this funding is available. There will be a final report as part of this process, and we are asking that grant recipients utilize the co-branded VA250 and Virginia Humanities logos once awarded. Okay, next slide, please. And we are currently accepting applications. They opened March 15th, so last Friday. We have a 2-month application window for this specific cycle. Applications are going to be due May 15th. And the project period for these awards is a 12-month project period beginning August 1st, 2024. If you have any questions about this specific program, anyone can reach out to me, Adam Corville. I'm the Associate Director of Grants and Fellowships at Virginia Humanities. Should have led with that. And my contact information is here. And again, thank you for allowing us to come on today and provide this very brief overview. We do have more information at our website, virginiahumanities.org, and more information about all of our grant making programs, this one in particular. So thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you so much. And again, we'll make all of this contact information available at VA250.org. So I know some of you are furiously taking notes, and that's great, but I do want you to know that that will be available, easy to find, and you can always call or email me if you have questions about how to locate the folks that you've just heard from. So next up is Serena Ballou. Yes? Close enough, from the National Park Service, who is going to talk with us a little bit about a program that we haven't heard too much about yet from our grant makers. And so Serena's going to let us know what partnerships and grant programs are available through the Park Service, and I'm going to let her take it away.
Good afternoon. Good morning. Good afternoon. Very happy to be here. As Elizabeth said, my name is Serena Ballou. I'm the Deputy Associate Director for the Preservation Assistance Programs in the Cultural Resources, Partnerships and Science Directorate of the National Park Service, which is part of the Department of Interior. Welcome to the federal government. I'd also like to point out that I am actually a statistic. I am one of the 1 in 3 of Americans who were able to pass their citizenship test. And so, thank you very much. I have been an American citizen since 2011. A fun fact for all of you is that technically I am a dual citizen with Great Britain, and the only way to be released from my British citizenship is to either petition the Crown for official release, or the one that's probably much more popular in this room, commit treason. So anybody got any ideas? Let me know. Anyway, moving on. I am also, I should say, official middle management in the National Park Service. I don't really do the work. I have incredibly capable people who do it for me. And they get the credit that they rightly deserve, and then when things go wrong, I get the blame. That's how it works. So I'm very happy to answer questions if people have them, but I may also have to give you the typical bureaucratic answer, which is, I will get back to you with that. But of the 7 programs that I manage, there's 2 groups that are grant programs. One of them is the American Battlefield Protection Program. Is everybody familiar with this? Yes? No? A little bit? Okay. So this is 4 grant programs that exist since Congress created them in the early 90s. It's been effectively in progress since 1996. That's the language that created the act. All very exciting stuff. I think for the purposes of this group, probably the first program that's listed here on the left, the preservation planning grants, is the one that has the most flexibility for you all to consider, because it is open to any site of armed conflict in the United States, territories, effectively American soil. So we have grants that range from New England to Guam and Saipan, and lots of places in between. It is a planning grant, though, so it is not bricks and mortar. It is for planning activities. And there's another slide that will show you a bit more information. Then the 3 other grants, which is the American Battlefield Protection Land Acquisition Grant, which is for actual purchase of property. You can also use it for easement, establishment on existing land. The key to the 3 remaining grant programs, though, is that you have to be associated with one of the battlefields that is listed in 2 of the congressional reports. There's one for American Civil War battlefield sites and one for War of 1812 and Revolutionary War. So that's sort of your starting point, is you have to check if your property that you're considering is part of one of those battlefields. But it's a pretty significant amount of money. It can be up to $2 million for an individual grant, and it's had some pretty good success around the country with preserving historic properties, and they end up with easements in perpetuity, so it's a good preservation tool. The 2 next grants, the Battlefield Interpretation Grant and the Restoration Grant, are the 2 newest ones that were created recently. They also they're sort of in the early stages. We've only had a couple of grant cycles for those, but I would certainly encourage you to look at those as well. And I think, let me move to the important slide, which has got money on it. So you can see here the preservation planning grants are, and I should, say the asterisk means subject to congressional appropriations. Our money goes up and down, but ABPP is pretty consistently funded by Congress. We have about $20 million in the FY24 budget. So the preservation planning grants are almost $2 million. The battlefield land acquisition grants are 17 and a bit million. And then you can see the last 2 are $1 million each. The grant cycles, unfortunately, I was looking at it this morning, and the preservation planning grants are probably closing as we speak. And then the battlefield land acquisition is a rolling deadline, so those are open all year round. And then the interpretation grants are due in June, and then the restoration grants are due in May. But if you have, I should say, I have some handouts in the front here. If anybody would like some more information on these grants, please feel free to take some. Let's see here. Okay, moving on to my other grant programs. This is just a list of all the other grants, the competitive grants that are within my group. Probably the ones that you're most familiar with might be the semiquincentennial, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. Perhaps Paul Brune, that's a fairly recent program. Save America's Treasures is one of the few grant programs that we do have that for bricks and mortar projects. The catch is you have to be a designated National Historic Landmark, so not just National Register of Historic Places listed, you actually have to be a National Historic Landmark. But it's still a good source of income for certain. So the semiquin grants, these are a relatively new thing. They were started in FY21. As you can see, we didn't do all that well in our funding for FY24. It dropped from 10 million to 7 million. But it is still certainly a good source of income. The sort of, I think, important information to know is there are certain things that we can't fund. We can't fund reconstructions. We can't fund moving buildings, and we can't fund new construction completely. But there is money available to actually do bricks and mortar in this, as well as planning. So just quickly, here's some information about how to contact us. I think probably keeping in mind the semiquin, I think the funding range for that is 15,000 to 75 for the planning grants, and then 75,000 to 750,000 for the repair and rehabilitation grants. So I think it's a pretty good source. I would caution you, of course, the federal government is not a fast-moving machine. And so I think probably pairing our grants with some other opportunities at the state or local level and not putting all your eggs in one basket, so to speak, is probably a very wise choice. We will certainly do our best at the National Park Service to help, but we are hindered by being in Washington, D.C., which means we're not always in touch with what's going on, at the local and state level. I guess I would put a shout out as well to, if you have national park units in your area and your communities, certainly approach them about partnering and looking. My good friends from Colonial National Historical Park are in the back here. And they would love to work with all of you if you're nearby. But, very much appreciate everybody's efforts. I think it's very abundantly clear to me that the local and state level is really where the action is and where things get done, and eventually us in DC catch up, as does the rest of the federal government. So thank you for everybody's efforts, and I'm happy to have a side conversation and get you information if I can help in any way.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much, Serena. Quite literally millions of dollars available out there for eligible projects. So I know everybody's really paying attention to that. Next up, we have with us Blake McDonald from the Department of Historic Resources, and another grant program that we haven't really talked about much with our local partners yet. So we're excited to hear what the folks at Historic Resources have to offer. And I'm going to let Blake let you know about that right now.
Great, thank you. Can you all hear me? Excellent. All right, just wave if you can at any point. My name is Blake McDonald. I'm with the Virginia Department of Historic Resources. I'm a grant specialist. We are the state's Historic Preservation Office, and we're in a really dynamic place with our grant opportunities right now. We have more money and more programs available than we have certainly since the recession. We do not have a specific 250 program yet. I'll talk more about that in just a minute. But I want to run through, I think, 9 programs with all of you. And I think that you'll see that many of them could be applied to your 250 commemorative projects. So if I could have my PowerPoint up, please. Great. Everything I'm going to be showing you today very quickly is available on our webpage. We also have a general grants inquiry email, grants@dhr.virginia.gov, and you can send any questions to that address. All right. So I'm going to dive right in. I'm going to start with a handful of programs that we've been running for a longer period of time that are more focused on historic resource identification, National Register nomination, and preservation planning activities. Then I'll be shifting over to programs that emphasize bricks and mortar rehabilitation of historic resources, and those tend to have higher dollar amounts associated with them. The first is our Threatened Sites program. Threatened Sites has been around for several decades. It's funding $50,000 annually divided into about $10,000 pots for emergency excavation, assessment, recovery of archaeology data that's at risk of imminent destruction. Anyone can apply for these funds, private property owners, localities, nonprofits. There is no match required. This is one that we run every year. Next to that, we've got our cemetery and grave funds. We run 2 different cemetery and grave programs. One is for African American cemeteries and graves. One is for War of 1812 and Revolutionary War cemeteries and graves. This works as a $5 per eligible interment program, so it's really just going to be maintenance funding that you're getting through the cemeteries and graves funds, but there's no real cap on the amount that we give out each year. This can be applied for by, again, private individuals, nonprofits, and localities. Next to that, we've got our cost share survey and planning grant program. This is intended to incentivize local preservation planning activities at localities and planning district commissions. We tend to fund things like National Register nominations for historic districts, preservation plans, and historic resource surveys through this program. I know we have several folks in this room who have successfully worked with us through the cost share program before. We do require usually a 50% match for these projects, but the benefit for the locality or planning district commission is that the Department of Historic Resources takes on the administrative burden of running those projects. So you bring us an idea, if we select your project and you put forth some funding, we will cover the rest of the funding amount. We will also develop a project scope. We will hire a qualified contractor to do that work, and we'll make sure that they're hitting their benchmarks so that you, the locality or planning district commission, get a nice finished product at the end. Similar to that is the Certified Local Government Grant Program. This is actually federal money that we distribute for our colleagues in the National Park Service within Virginia. You have to be a certified local government locality, which means that you've entered into an agreement with DHR and the Park Service to do certain kind of above the standard preservation activities, things like having a local design overlay and an architectural review board. But we are, at the Department of Historic Resources, required to spend 10% of our annual federal allotment on certified local governments. That figure ranges from about $140,000 to $150,000 a year. So it's a relatively big pot of money that those CLG localities can apply for. It covers all sorts of preservation planning activities, surveys, National Register nominations, and this one can also be used for bricks and mortar rehabilitation projects. Moving on to some of our newer programs. Within the past few years, we've been able to hire on a community outreach manager focused on Virginia African American communities, as well as a tribal outreach coordinator. Both of those positions come with $50,000 pots of money with each state fiscal year that are used to increase representation of Black and Indigenous historic places within DHR's statewide inventory of historic resources. These programs are so new that we don't have a formal structure for them yet, but if you have a project idea for a project that would emphasize recordation of African American or Indigenous places, certainly bring those to us. We were recently able to fund a small National Register Historic District here in Williamsburg using those community outreach funds. Next, we've got Maritime Heritage. This is another federal pot of money that we are administering here in the state of Virginia. This one is active right now. It is for the preservation and conservation of collections, properties, and objects associated with Virginia's underrepresented maritime heritage. So a broad range of activities that include rehabilitation of certain structures and objects, as well as collections work, is covered under this program. We're looking at a handful of projects we're aiming to run within the next year, ranging, I believe I've got up there, $10,000 to $150,000. So could be big, could be small. And our required pre-application for that project is available right now through mid-April on DHR's webpage. Finally, we have the Virginia Battlefield Preservation Fund. This is kind of like the state counterpart to what Serena was just telling us about at the federal level, distributing upwards of $1 million each year for the fee simple acquisition of battlefield lands associated with Revolutionary War, 1812, or Civil War that are within kind of designated battlefield areas, or for the purchase of an easement on battlefield lands. The catch here is that we do require a one-to-one match, and all of these projects do require a perpetual easement on the battlefield lands in question. A program that I want to draw particular attention to, it's new at DHR and we're very excited about it, is our Virginia Black, Indigenous, and People of Color, or BIPOC grant program. In the 2023 budget, we were awarded, and I miswrote there. It's actually 5 million, and there's an additional million in the budget that we're working through right now that may be headed our way. These can support the acquisition, protection, and rehabilitation of historic resources associated with significant BIPOC sites in Virginia. We are in the midst of our first funding round where we're going to be spending down about 2.5 million of that original $5 million pot. We're going to be announcing our awardees for that within the next couple of weeks. And we anticipate running a second round in likely the winter, so 24-25 winter. If we get additional money, that'll likely be a third round. This program can support bricks and mortar rehabilitation, and it's much more money than we are usually working with through our grant programs. And then I mentioned that we do not yet have a 250 fund, but within the current budget that we're working through in our just completed session, there is earmarked $20 million for the Department of Historic Resources for capital improvements of places that are expected to see increased visitation for 250. We have not begun developing a program for this money because we don't have it yet. But you can see the key components within this most recent amendment. Again, $20 million, it would be for historic sites and museums, and we would be requiring a 1/3 match. So keep an eye on our social media and our webpage and the budget to see whether this comes our way. We're very hopeful. Everything I've told you about just now can be found on our grants and funding webpage. And again, we've got that general inquiries grants@dhr.virginia.gov that you can contact us on. And then the very last thing that I want to point out, not one of our programs, but our next door neighbors at the Virginia Museum of History and Culture have the wonderful Commonwealth History Fund. It's in its, I believe, 3rd year, and they are distributing $400,000 annually in perpetuity, is my understanding, and it supports a very wide range of preservation activities, not just preservation, not just bricks and mortar rehabilitation, but also acquisition of property, exhibit work, all sorts of things. It's a pretty low lift application, and they'll be restarting their cycle in fall of 2024. So I highly recommend, if you're not already familiar, that you check out the Commonwealth History Fund. So thank you so much. My contact information is there, and I'm also happy to answer any questions about our programs.
Thank you. Thank you, Blake. Appreciate that so much. And although they're not able to be with us this morning, one other funding stream that I just want to make sure everybody's aware of is the funding stream from our friends at the Virginia Commission for the Arts. Those are smaller dollar grant programs, $5,000, but they're non-matching, and the information about those grants will be available to you on our website as well. I'm happy to take a stab at answering questions about the arts, but their contact information and all of the eligibility requirements will be out there with all of the other presentations that you've seen already this morning. But I do want to make sure there's time for you all to have a little networking time with your colleagues here. So I think I will, without anybody's objections, move on to the next part of our agenda, although I would like to make a few minutes for questions for our grantors, if there's anybody who'd like to ask any questions of them before we move on. Hearing none, we will take a moment then. I just wanted to let you all know, most of you do, I think, most of you are aware of the resources that are available to you through VA250 for our local committees. Just a few of them that I wanted to make sure, in addition to all of these dollars that are available in grant funding, we can provide a number of things that I think are helpful to you all, and most of you are taking advantage of them already. You can use our logo. We can provide a custom logo for you if you'd like to have one for your locality. My colleague, Trevor Grimm, is in the back there. He can wave. He will create those and mail them to you for your use anytime. Just let us know. We have microsites available on the VA250 website, and Trevor can create a micro website for you, provide you with the ability to upload material to it, provide you with a link so that you can share it just like it's a website that you created, but it's free, and you don't have to go to the trouble. It's a nice resource that's available. A lot of people have taken advantage of it so far, but not everybody. Additionally, we have an ability for you to upload your events, and we're sharing those events regularly through our social media. Our Chief Communications Officer, Mike Frontiero, is sitting here, and he is putting out a monthly newsletter that goes out, the Revolutionary Rumble, where to our entire master list, all of the events that are coming up in the month ahead. So make sure you're uploading your events, and if you're not sure how, Trevor is back there in the corner still. After you have these fabulous events, we're asking a favor of you. We are collecting all the data that you can provide us on your events. And this is very important, and you're going to hear it over and over again from us. But there's a mechanism for reporting your event statistics, and Trevor can give you the login if you're not familiar with it on how to upload your statistics to our website. We're collecting that data that we'll provide to an economist who will provide us at the end of the commemoration with an economic impact report that we'll share, so that not only will we at the state level know, but everybody will know what your efforts have done for Virginia as far as economic impact is concerned, and it's going to be big, but we got to know. So please provide us with your details. And we are collecting your stories. I know that Trevor has emailed many of you, if not all of you, and asked you to also send us your histories. What's the story of your locality? We are collecting this information for a number of reasons, not the least of which is for our mobile museum experience that my colleague, Kate Egner-Gruber, who is in the sitting right over there, is working hard on. Yes, we can applaud. And so she is looking for this information along with her colleague, John Hennessy. They're working together on this experience, and we want to make sure that everybody's story is told. So if you haven't received the information on how to upload those stories to our site, please see Trevor Grimm in the back, who will give you all of that information. Trevor is sitting there as a help desk resource for you right now as well. So while we are taking a few minutes to network, if you have questions about any of this, you can wander by his table and he will show you how to access it, help you figure out how to upload, all of these things in person. And if by chance you don't get to Trevor today, we just started last month for the first time, and we're going to do this every month going forward on the second Tuesday of each month from 10 a.m. till noon. We are holding office hours by Zoom, or by Teams actually, and we encourage you to pop on. We're just going to be there available to answer questions, talk through anything that you want to talk about. If you have questions about how to reach our grant makers, we can provide that to you, and any other questions that you might have. It's also an opportunity for you to chat with your colleagues who may be also taking advantage of that time. We had a pretty good group on the first one, and we hope that many of you will take advantage of that opportunity as well. We will send the link out by email every month, so you'll know how to log in, and as I said, we're just there as a resource. So that's a lot, and there's more. I'm sure that I'm leaving out, but I'm going to pause again to take some questions if anybody has any about the resources that are available through VA250. Okay, yes, sir.
I'm Walter Jenny with the Historical Society of Washington County down in southwestern Virginia, and I have 2 points related. In January of 1775, the Fincastle Resolves were adopted by leading individuals from Southwest Virginia. Of course, Washington County is just a small part of what that originally was. So we have a number of counties from which those 15 or 16 individuals came from Southwest Virginia. Wythe County, for example, today, Smith County, and so on, that did not exist then, but were part of the Fincastle County that existed at that time. there has been discussion about doing an event related to this Fincastle resolution, and that event would be coming up obviously in January of next year. So we have a short fuse to work with. I've spoken with a couple of people about the idea of putting on a production or a movie or something that encapsulates that, tells that story, and obviously we'd be wanting to market around. So the first thing I'd like to know, if there is anyone here from Southwest Virginia, if Fincastle Resolutions rings a bell to you, I'd like to visit with you. And I'd also like to hear from our panelists about any resources that might be available for that project.
Thank you so much. So anybody here who wants to talk with Mr. Jenny about Fincastle resolutions and what's happening there, please do so during our networking opportunity here in just a moment. Grant makers, would you like to take just a very quick minute to address that? I'm not sure if our folks are still available online.
I would look towards the Commonwealth History Fund for that one. I think there have been some similar projects that have come through that program. And I thought I saw Jamie in here at the beginning. I'm not sure if Jamie is still here. But Jamie Bosket with VMHC would also be able to answer that question. But Commonwealth History Fund would be a good one to look towards. Sure.
You know, and again, if you're looking at creating content, reach out to your folks at Virginia Humanities. If you're looking to market the events, Virginia Tourism, they're your folks. Are there any other questions before we take them up? Yes.
We have one of our counties isn't passing the resolution to join the Virginia 250, and though a couple towns have. And I wanted to know what Virginia 250 staff, if y'all are staff, are doing to be able to reach out to them when our local museums have tried, and for some reason or other, the county won't do it. And it's obvious with these grants that some of them require these, and I'm sure there's other ones. To my knowledge, there's not 100% participation across the state. So what can we expect to be done, and what messaging can the localities have done? The local museums have tried.
Sure. I can address that. And in general terms, and we can certainly talk offline specifically about your specific situation, but in general terms, we do have a way to work around that, and we can certainly make your programs eligible for grant funding, even if your locality, your county or your city has not adopted a resolution. There's a way that we can work with you on that. We really want them to become involved and to pass a resolution, so we'll help you with that too. But if that is just something that they are not going to do for whatever reason, then we can talk specifically and individually about the situation in your locality that's causing that problem, and I think that we can probably help to address it. So I hope that answers your question. In general terms, we can talk to you more specifically about your situation. Anybody else about grants or VA250 resources that are currently available? If not, we are running really low on time. I beg your pardon. Trevor would like to speak. Why don't you come up to the microphone, Trevor, and then we're gonna give everybody a chance to talk among yourselves and ask each other your questions that you have.
I know. Thank you, Elizabeth. You basically said everything I was going to say for the most part. So I'm just going to run down a quick list of resources. One, please submit your events, your places to visit, and web pages through our dashboard. If you need help with that, please come to me. And please peruse our site and look for any mistakes. You are the experts on your localities. I wish I was. And we can get it fixed as soon as we possibly can. And please report on those events once you're finished. I will reiterate that. Tag us and follow us if you haven't yet. Last I saw, our Facebook's at 888 followers, which is close to 1,000. One, it makes me look good. Two, the more followers, the more visibility, which snowballs into more followers and more visibility for everyone here. And yeah, please reach out for any help. But as for now, I'll be hiding that corner over there.
I would like to just reiterate one thing Trevor said. Please like us and follow us follow our posts, like our posts, share our posts, and we promise we're going to do the same for you. We want everybody to know about what we're doing, but more importantly, what you all are doing. So I know I said I was going to go around the room and find out where everybody is from, but at 5:12 and with lunch fast approaching, I think I'm going to let you all have a few minutes to talk at your tables, to get around the room and talk to your colleagues. I'm going to be here if you have questions. Trevor is there. Our grant makers are here. Thank you all so much for being here this morning.